Dawn was born in Bundaberg. That was on the 19th of November in 1925. She was born in the home of our parents, Eric and Violet Parsloe, and Dad was in the manager's residence, which was next door to the butter factory where my father was the manager. She was educated at the Bundaberg Central School and then at the Bundaberg High School. And she completed high school at matriculation standard just after her 17th birthday. I think nowadays nearly everybody's 18 before they're finished, so we think that was pretty amazing. She was a natural student. She just loved studying, reading, particularly poetry. For many years she'd wanted to be a school teacher. So the next step was for her to start the next year to go to the Brisbane Teachers College. Her parents weren't very keen on her going at 17 away to Brisbane, and this was towards the end of the Second World War. There was a desperate shortage of teachers. Do you know, 3 months after she went to college, she was sent to Roma, which is West Queensland, and from then she had the remainder of her teacher's training college by correspondence. Must have been very difficult. And then the next appointment she went to Glennie Private School at Toowoomba. After completing her teaching qualifications, she started university studies and she gained degrees in law, accountancy, commerce. She was a born student. And in her spare time, she gained an ATCL and an LTCL on art of speech. Her next move was to resign from teaching in Queensland and to move to Port Moresby, as she was the assistant to the Chief Inspector of Schools at Papua New Guinea. Now, at the age of 25, she decided she wanted to join the WRAAF as a lieutenant. Her initial work was in the administrative area in various RAAF bases. And in May 1960, she was appointed as a senior officer as RAAF headquarters in Melbourne. She had a settled work location and she bought her home in Forest Hill. Her next appointment was in Canberra, and in 1973 she was a group officer. Finally, she was appointed as the director of the Women's Royal Air Force. 1975, she was made a member of the Order of Australia, and I've brought these medals to show you too later, for exceptional service to the women in WRAAF in the struggle of their equality with the male members of the RAAF.
Work on it on.
And shortly after that, the WRAAF were going to lose their female identity and be absorbed into the RAAF. But after 26 years of service, she felt there were going to be lots of changes and she would make her position there untenable. So at 52, she decided it was time to settle and to retire from there. Dawn had a great interest also in horticulture, and after she retired, she completed a 3-year part-time course in this subject. And she then had part-time employment as a teacher at the Canberra Horticultural College. She continued teaching there, and she compiled a book of wattles, and it contained hundreds of pressed wattle flowers and leaves. I remember she used to have the phone books, and she'd put the leaves in and press them for so long. And she obtained during the different trips that she did during the States while she was in the WRA. In 1975, the health of our parents declined. They were no longer capable of living in the Bundaberg home. So the situation was discussed with Denley and me, and the solution decided was that they would come down south. Dawn was going to move out of her rented unit that she'd occupied since coming to Canberra and buy a 3-bedroom home, built so her parents could live in the front part. And during the house construction, we offered to have Mum and Dad come and live with us. And Denley rang them up, and they agreed very quickly because they were not carrying on very well on their own. Denley drove Dad's car back to Melbourne, and that was after Dawn and Denley flew to Bundaberg to help them pack, and she flew south with them. Denley drove Dad's car back to Melbourne, packed with a lot of our personal belongings, all that he could fit in. But unfortunately, Mother's cancer problems rapidly developed, and she passed away 6 weeks later in August 1972. It was just before Narelle's 3rd birthday. Dad continued to live with us for the next 8 years, and he loved having the children in the home with him. He had a yearly trip to Canberra to stay with Dawn in her Canberra home, and on occasion Denley and I went away, she came and stayed in our house. Dawn's Canberra garden was her main interest. She even took over part of the footpath and had extra flower gardens until the council objected. She was meticulous in her care. She always did things exactly by the book. She once told Denny that she couldn't understand how he managed to have such success with the gardening, as he did not follow any horticultural rules and did not do things correctly. He replied that his plants were not educated to the standard of hers, and so had to make the best of what they were given. Well, then Denley and I moved into Balmoral Gardens Retirement Village in 2002, and we were suggesting to Dawn that she do the same thing, but she rejected, for she thought that she wanted to stay independent. But after a few medical episodes, when I went up to Canberra to help her recover, in 2006, she also unexpectedly agreed to come in and to stay at Balmoral. Miraculously, she was offered the unit opposite me, which was just vacant. It was a wonderful thing. And this had a great garden at the front and another one at the back. And the garden was a real showpiece. Quite often we had people walking down just to look at it. She spends a lot of time visiting her closest friends. Lois and Helen, I think most of you would remember them, were just beautiful friends. And she was regretting, even a matter of weeks ago,